So, my topic is on mental health and domestic abuse in women. The ladies who influenced me to speak of them was Miss Wright from the drama Trifles and Sylvia Plath, who wrote the poem Lady Lazarus. Both women, especially Plath, took on a huge battle with mental health. What she most commonly faced was something that a lot of women face more than men today, which is severe depression, and most of which triggered from traumatic things that Plath had to go through, which was one major one was the loss of her father at the age of 10, and it pushed her to a mental health problem, and it escalated to suicide thoughts, and she did try to commit suicide at the age of 10. And as she grew older, she had to deal with her husband, and her husband was physically abusive to her, that it even led to one of her miscarriages to one of her babies. So just a lot of that really developed a lot of the depression in her. So and again, that was most of which was triggered when she grew up. It just made it worse as she grew up, in other words. Miss Wright was manipulated, and she obviously took her anger out on her husband, Mr. Wright. Her husband, at one point in time, I guess she led him to do whatever he said for her to do. And her friends wound up developing, I guess, the actual crime scene, how it all went out, and the conclusion was that Mr. Wright was, he was obviously abusive to her as well, and Miss Wright had so much buildup, I guess you could say, to the verge that led her to kill her husband because of all this. She snapped. And because what was most precious to her was that bird, because in her eyes she was kind of like, that bird was like a reflection of her. And once her husband took that away from her, it was just over. She said, enough was enough, and that's what led her to to kill her husband. So this was my brief summary of my paper.